Me and my partner pick a bale of cotton now. Me and my partner pick a bale a day. I jump down, turn around, pick a bale of cotton now. Jump down, turn around, pick a bale a day.
Welcome to the Standing in This Place podcast. I'm Rachel Carter and I'm the artist behind this project, supported by National Lottery project grants through Heritage Lottery. I'm going to be telling the historic tale of the intertwining of the lives of women working in the textile mills of the industrial Midlands and the enslaved women working the cotton fields in the Americas. For this episode, we sent Lisa from MonOlisa Productions to talk with Jenny. Born in West Yorkshire, she is one of our legacy makers here in Nottingham.
My personal link to the statue is about acknowledging and expressing and leaving a legacy that puts African women and descendants of African women through the Caribbean and enslavement at the centre of a very important piece of history that is not told. And that's my connection. I've spent a good few years now doing a lot of research about my own family and my own history in terms of enslavement and slavery and its impact on people of the Caribbean, its impact on Jamaica. Most of that history is US, American. Most of the books that have been written, let's say, are US and American. Very little about the Caribbean. So for me, coming from Nottingham, connected with the Nottingham African Caribbean community and specifically connected with the great women that are around and involved in this project that hail from the Caribbean is the crucial connection, that we've come together across many generations, many backgrounds, but we have that common link of a history that is not acknowledged, a history, one, of African people and their enslavement via the transatlantic slave trade, and two, that enslavement and its contribution to the wealth of the country that I was born in. I was born in England, I was born in the UK, and I never saw any signs of that history or that contribution of my ancestors. And three, that it's about women, specifically, about the contribution of women, how they toiled, how they adapted to this brutal life, and made the best of it as they could with what they had. And that takes huge creativity, huge resilience and courage. And I think many of us who are the descendants of such women feel that, have that, that bubbles up to the surface at different times, So it's an acknowledgement of gratitude to that, really, of real gratitude, and being humbled by that journey and saying, well, we really honour you for bringing us to this point, and we're going to leave this world honouring you and leave that somebody to take up the baton to take it to the next point, and make sure that dishonouring and disremembering never happens again. Yeah. So for me, that's the personal, the personal drive and the personal connection to see this statue to fruition.
And you've been involved in that process and that journey. Had you not been involved in it and you saw the statue first time just walking by,
yeah,
how would that impact you?
That would be a wow for me. If I saw the statue and I had never been involved with the project, I would be amazed. It would stop me in my tracks. I would be determined to find out as much as I possibly could about the statue, how it came to be, and I'd pour myself into having a good look at it, looking at the images and reading as much information as possible about it. And I would be, wow, this city is like, this place is incredible to do this, to bring this to the fore. That's some imaginative step. That's a really bold step. So yeah, I would be in awe. It's speaking on so many different levels to various audiences, but it's also cutting a real kind of like almost a cliff of history as it should be, and history as it needs to be told, the kind of given given mantras that we get about history in this country and how it should be told and what it should consist of and who makes it, and from past even to present, that kind of debate and conflict is going on. But the statue cuts through all of that. Gets straight to the point. It's talking truth to power. The power of that image, the power of those women reflected in that statue, the power of understanding that Britain was involved in the transatlantic slave trade. There was white women involved and there was enslaved African women harvesting that cotton. It's a powerful image. So for me, yeah, it would be brilliant.
Why is the legacy makers important to you?
The legacy makers are important to me because of the very fact that they are legacy makers. They're creating a legacy. They're really punching above their weight, really moving forward with these controversial projects and programs, but doing it because it's necessary, but doing it in a way that involves people and collaborates and cooperates and is about seeing the broader picture, understanding the wider human context, but equally not shying away from the real central message, which is that enslaved African people contributed massively to the wealth of this country, massively. And that is why I am so happy to be involved with the Legacy Makers project. I think, in this part of the world, in Nottingham, where, this is the place of lace, textiles. It's vital that we know, well, where did the cotton come from, and other things besides. So to me, it's a vital piece of work. I think when we look outside of Nottingham and the world around us, and we see certain things happening, the conflicts that still remain in the world, the prejudices and discriminations that are in the world, it links right back to this very kind of project, this very idea that we're trying to give that counterbalance and give that voice to those people who've been denied and who have been at the receiving end of this discrimination. It gives that counterbalance and it gives that voice of reason and fact and history to people that need to know why the world is the way it is and how things are the way they are. So, and in our little bit of Nottingham, I know there's a wider movement developed now around this issue, but in our bit of Nottingham, I think it's great that we're making a great contribution to that.
We're going to return to Lisa and Jenny's conversation in a moment, but first we're going to take a little creative break and hear a poem from one of our young creative writers from Writing East Midlands. Here's a piece by Kit Bailey.
History causes hurt, time dulls pain, memory holds sorrow, our past has a stain. Today you call it progress, tomorrow forget the cost, in love and in blood and memory and loss. The terror of division, the sadness of grief, once serving no way out, there is no relief. No release from our working, we are hurting machines, small reward for our labours, no betterment means. We are beaten, mistreated, each breath we take kills us. Whether we live or die, you do not care. You care about your wealth. You boast to your country. We are the richest. We have invented a factory. We work to grow cotton, enslaved in the fields. We are your workers and toil for our meals. Would anyone sanction what we are commanded? Would anyone sanction how we live our lives? We long for the future, for freedom and learning, for connectedness, knowledge and touch we are yearning. We wait for understanding, comprehension and meetings, anticipate contact with hands and eyes, the threads of history reeling out beneath us, footprints embedded equally in clay.
Thank you, Kit, for such a powerful poem, which you've titled History Causes Hurt. We're now going to return back to the conversation with Lisa and Jenny.
The writing our names down in the family Bible, which my mum got from her family, and I think it was a recognition that they were at least a little bit literate, because they weren't, they were very ashamed of not being able to read and write extensively, of not being able to send their children to school, but they somehow, some of the elders did, and they started the tradition of writing the names of their children in the Bible, in the family Bible, and when they were born. Which was a big thing, because my mum made it such a big thing. My name was written in the Bible, my brother's name was in the Bible, my sister's name was in the Bible. So it was a beautiful thing to see this tradition carrying on from Jamaica, from St. Mary, from Trelawney. And it reinforced for me how important it was to see the birth of a child, the birth of a child, and who their mother was and who their father was. So I love that. I love seeing that as a child. I love hearing that story from my mother. It was a great to be taught that. I couldn't get enough of it, and I'd go to the Bible and keep looking at it. So it's but the link for me is, as I've gotten older, is how the importance of history and knowing your history in connection to your people is and was for them. And that's what they were trying to capture, or perhaps even recover, given their history of enslavement. That kind of essence of saying, we're here and we're having our children, and they're going to be, in writing their names, there's a sense of hope and a sense of wanting something for them, and it's just a lovely thing. I think it's a beautiful thing, memory that I carry of, gosh, hearing people that, my mum talked of how poor they were, how things were hard, but here they were trying to make note, give a sign that their children are here, really important in terms of family, in terms of a people who've been ridden over, roughshod over, and all kinds of things, but, picking up that importance of learning to write and then putting it to good use. Yeah, so that is a wonderful story for me.
How does that connect to you when, as regards to the statue, the two women?
So I think for the connection is the lineage, that striving to be, not to necessarily be recognised, but to affirm, your place, to affirm your identity, to affirm your contribution, and that writing of their children's name is a commitment. It's a commitment to their children, but it's also affirming their right to be alive, their right to be people in their own right. The fact that they're doing something that matters, and that's what the statue also signifies for me. It's like we are sort of saying we've got a right to give a sense of our connection to our ancestors. We've got a right to affirm ourselves. We've got a right to actually have an image in our own identity reflected back to us. And I think that's what that statue says. It'll say a lot of things, I'm sure, to many, many people. But in this point in time, this place and point in time, that's what I think we're bringing to it, that sense of it's about time. It's about time this is acknowledged, for best or for worse. We have to stand firm and say that this is our history, and we're not going to brush it under the carpet. We're not going to hide behind, the barrage of denial and dismissal. We're going to stand firm and face this history onwards. We're going to face it, and we're doing it as we know that it would have been faced by the very women that have come through it to have these children that, whose children's names that get written in Bibles. And, they would have stood firm. They would have faced much worse, So I think if this statue just represents to me, a tiny morsel, a speck of what really, happened in the lives of those women. It gives an insight, a glimpse into that world. And more importantly, it leaves a legacy. It leaves the world that will look upon it some deep questions that they've got to ask themselves about the history of this country and its relationship to the Caribbean and Africa and the people that, that were forcibly taken from Africa. So it opens up that channel of discussion that's so overdue. So overdue. Breathe a breath of fresh air into something that we need to air.
Thank you, Jenny, for that wonderful interview. And I agree, the statues, these two women, they're coming from the past. And yeah, I like your analogy about them breathing, about them taking air, about them being, and for us to honour our ancestors' contributions. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and do tune in again for another episode of the Standing in This Place podcast. Thank you.
Me and my partner pick a bale of cotton now. Me and my partner pick a bale of day. I jump down, turn around, pick a bale of cotton now. Jump down, turn around, pick a bale of day.